Good evening and welcome to a Be Informed session. My name is Kyle Buhariwala and today we'll be looking at emotional well-being. Today is the first session for this year and we are joined by Rosalie Woods of rosalieKwoods, who will be talking to us about reclaiming emotional qualities. And before we proceed, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we're meeting today and pay my respects to their elders past and present. So today's session is on emotional well-being. Rosalie will take us through reclaiming emotional qualities. This is in relation to health and well-being matters, and any information shared today is general only. If you do have any specific queries, we recommend that you consult a professional that's relevant to your needs and circumstances. The information presented today is current as of this month. If you do rely on this information in the future, you may wish to reconsider its application depending on your changing needs. Rosalie has kindly prepared a one-page handout, which we will share following today's session, which will contain a summary of the matters raised in Rosalie's seminar. And if you do have any specific queries, you can raise them to me, and I will relay them through to Rosalie, who will answer them during the Q&A session. So with that all in mind, we will now proceed through to the seminar, and I'll hand over to Rosalie, who has kindly prepared these slides and will take us through for the next 25 minutes on reclaiming emotional qualities. Over to you.
Great. Thanks, Carl, for that intro, and hi everyone, those that are here live and those that are catching the replay. Great to be with you this evening. My name's Rosalie and I am a life coach, and today I'm really excited, a little bit nervous, and also privileged to be here to talk to you about one of my favourite topics, and that is disowned emotional qualities. Because when I first learnt about disowned emotional qualities, a few light bulbs went off in my head and a whole new world opened up to me, which meant that I ended up living a whole new way of life, that I'm now living more authentically. My self-expression and self-worth and self-love have all increased as a result of reclaiming some emotional qualities. And so my goal for you today is that you learn to name and start to reclaim at least one of your disowned qualities. Next slide, please, Carl. So being human means that we are in fact everything. We contain every single human quality, characteristic, emotion, and feeling. Everything resides within us, and because that's what makes us human. And every quality does have a purpose. And like when we're born, we've got full access to the whole range of our humanity, because you can see it in a baby. One moment they're peaceful, the next minute they're happy, then they're sad, then they're crying, then they're angry, and then they fall asleep. Okay? And all of that can occur within a 5-minute time frame. But as we grow up, we start to receive messages about what not to be. And we receive those messages from our parents and our caregivers, you know, don't be lazy, don't be greedy. Or you might have overheard a conversation about, oh, those poor people down the road. Or in school, maybe you watched someone be bullied, or maybe you were the bully and shamed someone for being fat. Or maybe you watched a teacher shame a student who was struggling for being stupid. So when this happens, we often decide, oh, I don't want to be that. And so we start rejecting parts of ourselves and we stuff those qualities down. We do it to stay acceptable, safe, and loved. So as we go through life, we start judging parts of ourselves as good, bad, wrong, right. And that's all based on the messages that we've received from our parents, our caregivers, institutions like schools, sporting clubs, dance classes, places of worship, and in our culture as a whole. So we continue and we keep rejecting the qualities in ourselves that we've deemed bad, wrong, or distasteful, unless we do some work on ourselves to sort that out. And that's what we're starting to do today. And so then, to prove that we're not that, we tend to overcompensate. So, for example, if you don't want to think that you're stupid, you might get many advanced degrees and trainings to prove that you're not that. Or if you don't want to be needy, you see that as being a bad quality, you might never ask for help. And indeed, researchers estimate that over 80% of our habits, behaviours, and actions are unconscious. We're not even aware of them. And that's what's so cool about this work, because by becoming aware of our patterns, we can update our human operating system. It's no longer stuck on repeat. And that means we can adjust our choices and actions and obtain a different result. So, learning to name and claim our emotional qualities allows us to become more us, more authentically you. Or another way of saying that is that you become your flawsome self. You're both a flawed and awesome person, because that's what being a human is about. Or, as Susie Kassam so beautifully put it, life is like a piano. White keys are the happy moments and the black ones are sad moments. But both keys are played together to give us the sweet music that we call life. Next slide, please, Carl. So what are disowned feelings? Disowned feelings are those prickly emotions that you attempt to block out of your awareness. You tell yourself you're not feeling them and you try and give them the cold shoulder. But the truth is, it takes a lot of energy to keep pushing them away. And perhaps not surprisingly, you may be surprised, you may not, the top 3 disowned feelings are anger, hurt, and fear. And the problem with disowned feelings is that they come at a high cost, because denying that we're not feeling a certain way, that we have an unwanted feeling, that doesn't resolve it. It simply drives it out of your consciousness, but it's still there and it's in hiding. And sooner or later, the feeling's going to pop up again. It's a bit like trying to push an inflatable beach ball underwater. You can try and push it under, but as soon as it goes under, it pops up again, and it takes a lot of energy. It just keeps popping up. And that's why you find yourself caught in repetitive relationship patterns or miscommunications. And even more damaging is that every time you disown a feeling, you weaken your sense of self. You water down your emotions until you don't even know what you're feeling anymore. And we call that being numb. So, some of the consequences of disowned qualities are miscommunication, decreased energy, and a loss of vitality. Because, as I said, it takes a lot of energy to keep them stuffed down. Poor boundaries, exhaustion, forgetfulness, poor self-worth, and mood disorders like anxiety and depression. Okay, so next slide, please, Carl. So on this slide, we're just going to look at some of the messages that we received as children by our parents, our caregivers, our schools, our institutions, and our culture. So take a look at this list. You know, these are some of the more common ones. Don't be lazy, don't be selfish. Oh, that poor family. You know, you're stupid, nobody likes a show off, etc. And here are some others. You know, you're greedy, angry, you're dumb, you're sad, you're neglectful, you're sinister, you're desperate, you're vindictive, you're cold, you're hopeless, you're not good enough, you're pushy, you're a perfectionist, you're destructive, you're withholding, you're not good enough, you're self-righteous. The list goes on and on. But the good news is the most effective way to find the qualities that we've rejected in ourselves is to see them in others, because whatever we don't own about ourselves, we project onto other people. So you'll find your own disowned qualities when you're triggered by someone else. Okay, so other people mirror back those hidden qualities, and that's when you start to become aware of that, that allows you to recognize them and reclaim them. And that's why people are your emotional triggers. So those people that you just, you know, every time you see them, they may not even have to speak. You just see them and you go, oh my God, I don't want to be that person, or I don't want to deal with that. It's because they're expressing a quality that you disown within yourself. So today, you know, this is about giving you the opportunity to learn more about yourself, because if you actually take those people and look at them, you can start to reclaim the qualities that you aren't owning yourself. And here's the kicker. The disowned parts of ourselves, those qualities we've disowned, are like tractor lights on high beam. We attract those people that have those qualities. So if you don't want to be selfish, guess who you're going to be attracted to in life? Selfish people. And so the disowned parts of ourselves also become the lens through which we see other people. If we've rejected laziness in ourselves, we'll see laziness all around us. So the more you disown laziness or any other quality, the more lazy people you'll see around you. And that's called the reticular activating system. So when other people come along who act out one of these qualities, they plug right into us, just like a PowerPoint that's already had the on switch flicked on, and we get triggered. For example, if we deny or we're uncomfortable with our anger, we'll attract angry people into our lives. So we'll suppress our own angry feelings, but then judge people who we see as being angry. And I'm sure that everyone on this call, whether you're watching live or watching the replay, you've heard someone yell, "I'm not angry," when they clearly are really angry. And so, yes, that's a really great example of someone disowning being angry. Next slide, please, Carl. So, can you see how this works? And, you know, as I've been talking, it's quite possible that a few qualities may have surfaced for you. So this slide is all about doing a little bit of work for you. So if you haven't already got pen and paper, or your phone next to you where you can write some notes, or your computer next to you where you can open up a new document and write some notes, please do that now, because it's time for you to do a little bit of work yourself and to explore what might be true for you. So, are there any particular disowned qualities coming to mind? Has anything bubbled to the surface even as I've been talking about it? And I want you to go through each of these questions and jot down, make some notes of them. So what was okay to express in your family or school, and what wasn't okay? And remember, these are the qualities or characteristics that you most don't want to be. And they've been influenced by the messages and beliefs about right and wrong, good and bad that you received from others, and they're most likely to be the characteristics that you feel triggered by the most in others. So I'm going to give you a minute to do these couple, so what was okay for you to express in your family or school and what wasn't okay. And as I give you a minute just to go through that, I'm just going to say a few other qualities in the background and just notice if there's anything that really stands out for you. And if there is, just make a note of that too. Coward, superior, foolish, emotional, sloppy, ugly, fat, anorexic, bitchy, sneaky, condescending, judgmental, wasteful, anxious, worthless, critical, flabby, cruel, paranoid, bitter, bossy, cold, resentful, racist, malicious, inferior, thick-headed, weak, full of shit. Okay, so that's just a few. And then think about it. Which of these are you still disowning? And who are the people that trigger you the most? What is it about them that triggers you? And can you name that emotion? And let's not forget about who you might be envious of. Because what emotion are you disowning when you're envious of someone? Because envy means that you want what they have. So it could be a disowned quality that you're expressing. So again, what has disowning these qualities cost you? And make a note of that now. And again, I'll pause for a little bit to give you some time to do that. Okay, so hopefully you can already see the promise of this, that when you own and embrace the qualities that you've rejected inside of you, you're not going to draw people with those qualities towards you. So those attractor light will now either be on low beam or switched off. And you're not going to be as triggered when other people display those qualities, which is going to free up an enormous amount of energy. And that's why it's important to reclaim these qualities, because when we honour and express all of our feelings, our self-worth strengthens. We become more focused and we're more in the present. And once you're better attuned to yourself, you actually become better attuned to others as well. You become more authentic, which makes it easier to navigate through emotionally charged situations. And that's not to say that they won't happen, just for all you conflict avoiders out there. They will. You'll just find them easier to navigate. You're not going to get triggered as much or take someone else's quality or reaction personally, because you'll learn to respond rather than react. You gain compassion, improve communication skills, and emotional intelligence. And as a result of this, all your relationships will improve. Rather than judging and reacting to someone, you'll be able to respond because you understand that we are all everything, and that voice in your head changes from the judgment, resentment, blame, criticism frame of mind. Oh, I'm not, oh, I don't want to be that. Heaven, no. To a more compassionate voice of, when was I that? Or when am I that? Because you know that that's in you as well. So another way of saying that is that you become your flawless self. That, again, you're both a flawed and an awesome person, and that's what makes you human. Next slide, please, Carl. So, of course, this slide is all about the how-to, because it's like, Rosalie, it's great to know how these things eventuate, and yep, I've got a few things bubbling up, but how do I actually go about reclaiming them? Okay, so that's what this slide is about. It gives you a four-step process. And of course, reclaiming qualities takes time. For many of us, we've spent decades on the same pattern. So you can't expect that it's going to take a minute or overnight to unlearn that and instantly insert new things. It takes time. It's a journey, not a destination. And we're aiming for progress, not perfection. So here's the four-step process. Firstly, take a deep dive into your feelings. Observe yourself and others. Who triggers you? What are the emotions that are triggering you? And explore why they're triggering you. Write it down in a journal, on an app, make a voice memo, whatever works for you. And then take a look back, see if you can start to notice any patterns. Secondly, practice your communication. Most upsets are the result of miscommunication. So knowing what feelings and what emotions you are actually feeling and being able to accurately communicate what you're feeling allows the other person to respond more appropriately. I mean, how many times have you said, I'm fine, when you're not? I have done that many, many times myself. I'm fine when I'm not fine, and I can't possibly expect anyone to help me or support me if I can't even communicate what I'm actually feeling. Okay, and insert a pause before responding, even if it's a small one. If you need more time, that's okay. Most people will be okay with that. Ask for a timeout. That timeout could be as simple as, can we have a 15-minute timeout? I need to process this. It could be, let me check my schedule and I'll get back to you. Or it could be, I'm going to sleep on that and then I'll get back to you tomorrow. If you're asking for a timeout of any description, then it's important for you to give the other person the time for when you're going to get back to them. That is your responsibility. And then follow up on that. Please don't leave them hanging. Brene Brown, in her Atlas of the Heart, provided 3 reasons for using the right language. And I love these. 1, so people can help us. people can't help us, can't support us, can't guide us, can't correct us. They're left in limbo land if we're not communicating clearly. Secondly, so you know what you need, okay? And thirdly, so you don't have one emotion shifting into another because you misnamed it. Many people will say that they're angry, which is a fairly generic emotion, but angry includes disappointment. It also includes enraged in the same sphere of emotions. So how you would support someone or help someone who is disappointed is quite different to how you would support someone if they were enraged. So associating the right feeling with the right word is important. Okay. And, this is one of the things that's really great to do. So to help you name your feelings more accurately, I've included a few tools in the one-page handout that you'll receive at the end. So there's an awesome one-pager on the emotions wheel, the Emotions Lab website, and I've also included a YouTube video on emotions as well. There are many apps that you can download where you can track your emotions throughout the day, as well as many other resources, books, shows, podcasts, seminars, webinars, all of those. As I've mentioned, Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart is great, is a great one as well. Okay, and remember, part of the reason that why we are everything, a feeling is a feeling. It isn't good or bad, it just is. Thirdly, work with a professional, whether that be a coach, a therapist, or a combination of both, or it might be one first and one second, or swap them around, whatever works for you. And just to distinguish that a little bit more, a therapist works more with developing skills for managing emotions or past issues. So it's more about going from dysfunction to function. A coach, like myself, helps you to move from where you are now to where you want to go. So in my programs, I help guide you to uncover your personal truth, discover your own answers, and we reach an agreed outcome through clear action. So it's about improving your performance. And, the great news is that with teletherapy, Zoom, Teams, and the multitude of online platforms that we now have, you don't even have to leave your home to learn and to adjust, which is awesome. And finally, reward yourself. Acknowledge your efforts. It's about progress, not perfection. And celebrate your victories. Changing behaviours that you may have had for decades is not always easy. Okay, it takes time. So celebrate those victories, make time to reward yourself. And even as I say that, tune in. Is celebrating yourself something that you have disowned as well? So, in conclusion, as you become a cheerleader for your own growth and you reclaim these qualities, here's what you'll notice. Your communication improves. You're able to regulate your emotions more efficiently, so people don't trigger you anywhere near the same amount. You have more energy. Your relationships improve because you can communicate more clearly. And your self-love and self-worth increases as you become more authentic. And then you get to be loved and accepted for the essence of who you are. Okay, so final slide. Thanks, Carl. Awesome. So I want to thank you for your attention and enthusiasm for taking that first step to join join with me to learn more about yourself and your human operating system. And today's presentation on disowned qualities is just one part of the 8-week program that I conduct on rediscovering you. So the rediscover about supporting and reclaiming your wholeness, that we are everything. And in the program, I guide you to uncover your personal truth, discover your own answers, and we reach an agreed outcome through clear, sustainable micro actions. I offer this program both on an individual basis or as a small group. And indeed, the next small group commences in February of 2024. God, we're already talking about February. Wow. So if you've enjoyed today, I've got no doubt that you'll be blown away by the Rediscovering program. So reach out, give me a call, email, or DM me on LinkedIn or Facebook. That's where I tend to hang out. And of course, as I value action takers, I've got a special offer for those of you who register for the Rediscovering program by midnight Australian Eastern Summertime on Sunday, the 21st of January 2024. So that's 5 nights away. And that special offer is a 24% discount on the program, regardless of whether you're doing the individual or the group program. 24% because we're in the year 2024. There are a number of special bonuses that are also included, such as a 60-page editable workbook, a cheat sheet, and a few other fun stuff as well. So, as I said, if you've enjoyed today, I've got no doubt that you'll be blown away by the Rediscovering program. So reach out and let's work together on rediscovering you to own and embrace all that you are so you can live your best life. So come join me to become Flawsome.
Thanks, Rosalie.
So I'm delighted to take questions now.
Thank you. So just before we move on to Q&A, just Rosalie's details are on screen. So if you do wish to take her up on that offer or continue with her program, please do engage with her directly. Just as a reminder, this session is being recorded. So if you do have any queries about some parts of the session, or you missed, a part of the session at the start, you can always watch it online through our YouTube channel. And Rosalie, as she's mentioned, has kindly prepared a one-page handout, which we will share following today's session, which contains a summary of all the notes that she has talked about today. So we'll move to Q&A, and we'll start, Rosalie, with the questions we've received ahead of time through email. The first one being, you talk about the process to disown, reclaiming those disowned qualities. In practice, how easy is it? You talk through the steps. Do you have any sort of examples you might be willing to share on an anonymous basis of individuals that have sort of had to go through that process and really revisit some of their aspects of their their life that they didn't want to look to or revisit?
Yeah. Look, Carla, I do, and I guess it's not easy, but it is. The first step in reclaiming anything is actually being aware of it to start with, and then it becomes a bit like an onion of you notice one layer, the bigger stuff, and then you start to move to another layer and another layer. But a great example is from one of my clients who came to me with some relationship issues and wanted to explore a bit about what was going on for her. And she recognized that, she had felt predominantly broken. And so when anybody questioned her or things didn't go the way that she wanted to, she took it really personally and thought it was all about her. But through learning that, she had qualities that she'd, disowned. And in this case, these were, qualities like standing up for yourself and recognizing that you are worthy. She was able to then finish the program and went away going, oh, so when someone upsets me, it's not just me. This is just part of the ebb and flow of life, so I can let it go and move on and not hold a grudge against that person forever and a day. You know, I know that for myself, I disown being angry, for many years. That it's like, I'm not angry. I couldn't label it. I know how that happened from my childhood, but being able to, and so I would stuff it down, and I would withhold, and I would do the stony silence thing. That was part of my go-to, was staying silent. But as I was able to reclaim angry, then now I can just say, hey, I'm really angry about that. There's no change of inflection in my voice, but it's being able to just clearly communicate that I'm angry. And I now know that when I'm angry, um, it's usually a signal that something needs to change in me, you know. And every quality has a gift to it as well. I mean, if someone stands on your foot or that sort of thing, it hurts, and so you've got a right to be angry, but you don't want to take that anger out for the next 3 days. Just deal with it there, and you go, ouch, that hurts, get off my foot.
Yeah.
And you can let it go. So you're only expending energy on the anger or the hurt in that moment where it's appropriate. You're not then thinking about it for days or weeks or months on end, or every time you see that person, you associate that one aspect of what happened with, what 90% of the time might have been a beautiful conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a step before reclaiming is recognizing and acknowledging, right? I think you're the first recognize
Yeah.
and then acknowledge that you had a quality that you now wish to, reclaim, that you had disowned, right? So in doing that identification process, is that something that you look through at your program where you will work with your?
Yeah, we take people through a process, Carl. So each session there is a process that helps people connect with that part of themselves. And whilst we don't spend a lot of time exploring past issues, we will bring up, where can you first remember that from? And use that as a starting point.
Yeah.
And as I said, over 80% of our behaviours and actions are unconscious. So that's why the first step is, if you can't even recognise that you have a problem with anger, or have a problem with lazy, or have a problem with whatever quality it is, then you can't change it.
Yeah.
So you have to have that first step of being self-aware, in order to start then making different choices and taking different actions, which will lead to a different outcome.
Which is not that difficult. Which is not that easy to do, right? If you think about,
Oh,
if someone is stressed, if you feel stressed, you sometimes, or you feel as if you're overworked, or you sometimes tend to say to yourself, "Oh no, I'm actually not that," right? You don't want to acknowledge that you actually are stressed, because
yeah,
then there's other
exactly.
negative emotional qualities, right? Uh,
And here's the thing, we put the connotation on it.
mm,
Like, every quality doesn't is charge neutral. We put the positive or the negative
spin to
spin on it.
Yeah,
Because in some families, being angry was okay. That was part of self-expression, and it was
mm,
okay to say that you were angry. But in other families, that was a taboo. You couldn't clearly express that you were angry. And that's why it's important, for each individual to check in and see, well, what was okay for me to express and what wasn't,
mm.
and start to explore a little that way.
And just
Yeah.
in relation to one person's questions, which I'll reframe, but it's more in relation to their culture and their upbringing. And you mentioned the childhood. in the work that you do with your clients, how big of an issue is that? How impactful is someone's childhood and their upbringing and their culture on the way that they do progress throughout your program and are able to reclaim emotional quality? Like, there might be certain individuals who are just, they're quite sort of, rigid and not that flexible in terms of being able to accept it and reclaim those qualities. Do you see that being an issue in certain types of people or from those certain types of cultures?
Yeah. Yes and no. Look, what I've experienced myself, and I have been, involved in coaching groups and organizations that conduct business globally, and I've witnessed people from multiple different cultural backgrounds, and the emotional qualities have been all the same across, there'll be differences according to culture. So for example, you tend to find, and this is going to be, someone will say that's a rash generalization, and it is, that Asian cultures tend to be more reserved, particularly Japanese, will want to put on that mask of everything is hunky-dory. But deep down, those emotions are exactly the same as someone who is in a different part of the world, that quality. So that's where there are a lot of similarities across cultural things in terms of which emotional qualities or what people have been told to do or not to do, but there are some differences as well.
And how early can you start this process? Like, this is a good opportunity for school-age children to sort of get on board and figure out which qualities they wish to reclaim, or is it something you do later in life when you've got a bit more experience and exposure?
Probably a little bit more later in life, I think, Carl. I mean, a lot of this work originally goes back to Carl Jung, and his philosophy was that most of these things were formed by the age of 10. But I don't think we really have I don't know that we have the maturity or capability to really look at it much for ourselves before we're an adult, as well, because we are still forming. And part of it is life experience and being able to see the patterns that are repeating for us. Yeah.
And I think, because I just recall during my school days, looking at Carl Jung's work during health and wellbeing classes, right? So, but then I also think that it's too early in a person's life to be reclaiming those discerned qualities when you haven't sort of seen too much of the world and how it can apply in other settings than just being with your family or at school, right? So, I think those later in life, as you say, will benefit greater because they're able to sort of associate and disassociate certain qualities and put them against each other and see, which ones they've actually disowned and which ones would be worthwhile to reclaim.
And it's, which ones are I repeating the same pattern over and over again? It's the definition of insanity, isn't it? The, keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So you've got to be able to, I guess, have enough life experience to be able to see that you have repeated a particular pattern a few times, to see that, ooh, I'm the common denominator in that pattern. If that's a pattern, then sadly, then it's up to me to change it, and changing it, does take some work. It's not a flick of a light switch or a magic pill. It takes time and it takes effort. And the work that I do with people, we're all about micro actions. I know that there are some proponents of just take massive action and go from there. I'm more of the let's take the smallest possible action that you can, make it sustainable, and we'll build on it from there.
That's great, Rosalie. That's been a very thorough presentation.
Thank you.
I think certain aspects of one's, health and well-being that they haven't, and emotional well-being in particular, they haven't sort of explored and may wish to explore through your program. So I appreciate the time that you've taken.
Yeah.
That brings us to the end of the Q&A session. We have no further questions that have come through. I'll just share again Rosalie's details. If you do wish to engage with her directly, please do. Her details are on the screen, and it'll also be in the one-page handout, so you'll get that on paper to keep with yourself. So just as a reminder, this session is being recorded. So if you have joined late, don't worry. You can watch the entire session online through our YouTube channel. And Rosalie has kind of prepared a one-page handout, which I will share with registered participants shortly following the session. And you'll have a handy guide that you can share with family and friends and use for yourself. So that brings us to the end of the session. Thank you again for attending. Please do follow us on our social media channels. We do rely on word of mouth, and we thank all our presenters like Rosalie who take the time out of their day to help you make informed decisions. Our next session is on the 31st of January, a Wednesday, in 2 weeks' time, where we'll be joined by a professional in the space of buying a property. So if you're looking to buy a home this year, feel free to join that session to learn some tips and traps, especially in a very sort of balancing market as we now know, and when interest rates are relatively high, but there's some indication that it might drop maybe towards the end of this year. So with that all in mind, thank you very much, Rosalie, for your time today, and looking forward to seeing any of you that you wish to see us in the future in future sessions.
You're welcome, and it would be my pleasure, Carl. Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity too. Cool.
Thank you all, and bye for now.
Bye.